Hey YouTube, I just wanted to put together a quick video. Just wanted to put together a quick non-shaky video. Oh, look at this. So, the tripod era, guys. So the question I keep getting asked is, how do you stack on your income? Okay, and a lot of what this channel, what I wanted it to be, is kind of about that. Is how to basically, build a good stack on a middle income, or even at this point, guys, slightly below middle income. Although I think if you look at the mean income, I think we're almost smack dab in the middle. So yeah, let's call ourselves middle income here. How to build a big stack on a middle income salary. And part of what I've tried to do with my channel is, a lot of it, some of it is thought exercises, but a lot of it is just what I'm doing. And a lot of it is small potato stuff that most people won't bother with, but it all turns into this. I'm earmarking all this stuff, what I basically call free money. Okay, and what I consider free money is money earned outside of my job, without really having to put a lot of effort into it, right? I'm not digging ditches part-time on the side. I mean, I wouldn't consider that free money. But, having friends give me their Coke caps and then turning it into my Coke rewards and buying gift cards and selling them, I consider that free money. Credit card sign-up bonuses, credit card rewards, 5% off gas, 3% off groceries, I consider that free money. Just stuff that I'm doing anyway. See, I came to the realization that I want to build up some wealth, and I want to use silver and gold as a vehicle for doing that. I haven't bought any gold yet. It's coming at some point, but this is the vehicle that I'm going to choose to save. And boy, guys, am I ever driven? Am I ever driven to keep adding this to my to my stack? Right before I left for Florida, I made my silver stack, the big stack, how bad do you want it video. And really, I was, sorry, I was really talking about me here. And to answer my own question, I want it bad. Bad enough to completely change up how I view money and how I live my life? Absolutely. Part of it is because it feels like the clock is ticking on me. Okay, I mean, at 42 years old, I'll be 43 this summer. I'd like to work until I'm 60 years old. That means I have 17 years to build up some wealth. Okay, and when I say retirement, I don't mean literally sitting on the couch watching Gunsmoke, for the last 20 years of my life. I mean having financial freedom to pursue things that I want to pursue. Maybe some of that will be a different job, but something that I enjoy, not something that's a chore to hit the alarm at 5 o'clock in the morning and begin my day. Financial freedom. So I've really taken a look at my entire financial life, guys, because there's two pieces to the puzzle. There's the revenue piece and there's the expense piece. And I've gone over this in a bunch of videos. I think one is how to find, money in your monthly budget for silver. Guys, I've literally taken my entire budget and gone over line item by line item and looked for ways to cut. I see every light that's left on unnecessarily as a Mercury dime that I can't buy. Every time I go to buy something, the question is, do I need this? I'm not talking about for the kids. The kids don't want for anything, okay? We take care of the kids' needs. But me personally, right now I get the most gratification out of adding to my wealth in physical silver form. So yes, look, some of you guys are going to watch this and go, yeah, you're nuts. I want my morning Starbucks. That's part of my day. That's what I enjoy. Hey, absolutely, of course, go for it. Go have your latte. I don't care. I don't care what you spend your money on. I don't care what any of you spend your money on. This is kind of like a personal odyssey where, I want the big silver and gold stack. I want this to help supplement my income in retirement. And I'm willing to do all the necessary things to do it. Now, to give you an example, I just placed my big Scottsdale order. And, that's obviously a bigger order than I've ever placed. I've never bought 100 ounces at a time, okay? What that was is when we went to Florida, normally we go to different theme parks. Okay, we'll go to like 3 different theme parks. We'll go to Universal Studios, Disney, and SeaWorld, almost like every year. And I started to realize, the kids are at that age, they're a little bit in between, where they're not really having as much fun there as they can. My son's 10, but he doesn't want to go on the roller coasters yet. So he kind of mopes around the park because he doesn't want to do the scarier rides, and yet the younger rides are too young for him. So basically you end up, you go to those parks, guys, and you're spending $600 on a day with 4 people. Without even trying. And so I realized, well, we're spending a lot of money here, and we're not really getting the full benefit out of it. So you know what we did? Instead of going to theme parks this year, we went to a wildlife reserve called Homosassa Springs. It's on the Gulf Coast of Florida. And it's just a little reserve where they have a bunch of animals that are native to Florida. The kids had a blast. We spent almost nothing on that. So instead of going to SeaWorld, we went to Homosassa Springs. My son loves baseball. We went down to a Marlins game. Okay, we sat right behind the Nationals dugout for $25 a ticket. So instead of going to Universal Studios and dropping $600, we went down to Miami and spent $50 on a baseball game. My son had a blast. Absolute blast. We didn't get to see Bryce Harper. That was something he was hoping to see, but whatever. He still had a great time. Went to a new baseball stadium. We hit the beach instead of Disney World. Okay, packed a lunch, went to the beach. This vacation, and we drove down. This vacation was actually cheaper than I think if we were just like living our normal lives. We're staying with my parents. So yeah, I took that savings because we had budgeted for doing bigger and better things. I took that savings and I bought silver with it. That's just how I'm looking at things now. I'm really looking at, if I want, and so that's the expense piece, right? My vehicles, guys, are 8 years old and 6 years old. No car payments. None. Okay? Minimum maintenance. We have a couple Nissans, and they're rock solid for us. We put very little maintenance into them. We don't have to. Okay, so like I said, I go through my budget line item by line item, and right now we're in a bit of a sweet spot because we don't have car payments. Our condo, we went 10 years ago now, actually almost 11 years ago now, and, we were looking for a nice home, a nice house. And we realized that on our incomes, we simply couldn't afford the type of house that we wanted. Now, the bank was more than happy to give us more than we ever could have dreamed of actually buying. And believe me, when we sat down and said, wait a minute, you're actually, because our credit scores are outstanding, right? My credit score and my wife's have always flirted with 800. One of the questions asked is, with all these credit cards that you open up, does it affect your credit score? It does, a little bit. But my credit score goes from like 800 down to 785. It still won't hold us back from ever getting financing if we ever needed it. But we don't need it. I'm not buying anything big. But anyway, we literally sat down with our bank, and they told us, here, you can borrow $300,000. And I was just like, my eyes bugged out of my head. I was like, not a chance. Why don't we look at something that makes sense for us? Why don't we find something that, has value? And you know what? I don't have to live afraid of losing my job because our mortgage is actually small enough that I could literally work at the corner gas station. We could still pay our mortgage. Okay, we actually pay less on our mortgage than we would if we rented our place. Not only that, every month $450 goes towards the principal. So it's like I'm saving $450 every single month. Okay, that's just how, and that's part of the reason why I was a little bit bitter when the housing implosion happened. I was like, wait a minute, come on. Everybody went out and bought these incredible houses. I certainly could have done the same thing, and then now they're defaulting on their house payments. That was irritating. Yeah, there were houses all around that sold for $300,000, $350,000, $400,000. Absolutely. I could have certainly done the same thing and had my own little McMansion and felt really good about it. But I looked at it and I said, it doesn't make sense financially. It doesn't make sense to kind of take that leap and buy something that I know that we can't afford. And oh, by the way, I'm looking over my shoulder, afraid that I lose my job. So that's the expense piece, guys. I literally have gone through my entire budget with a fine-tooth comb, and we don't spend money on anything unless it adds true joy to our life. It's something that is an absolute necessity. As far as the revenue piece, and again, I keep pounding this home. I look for every little way that I can to make a little extra money. And a lot of it is stuff that most of you guys wouldn't even be bothered with. And I completely understand it. Don't have a problem with it. I'm just kind of laying out a roadmap where I'm showing you, why I do what I do and how I'm able to do it. Every year, Red Sox tickets go on sale. And people in Boston are absolutely nuts for the Red Sox, including myself. Okay? And every year, I buy Red Sox Yankee tickets and I make really good money on them. Every year. I've done it every year since 2004. They have lotteries that you sign up for, and I sign up myself, my wife, and a friend. I always hit one of the lotteries. When the lottery's going on, they also have a phone sale. I hit that phone. I'll sit there for 6 hours banging on that phone, and I always get through because I'm persistent with it. And you know what? It sounds silly, a big deal. Red Sox Yankee tickets. Guys, I've made $1,000 this year on Red Sox tickets. Profit. Okay? Maybe it would be too cumbersome, or you don't want to be bothered, or you feel like it's an ethics thing where you don't want to resell sports tickets. Well, that's fine. I get that. But you know what? It works for me. This is the stuff that I'm doing. I always have my eyes open for an opportunity financially. And I realize I'm living in a different world than somebody that is like a successful businessman. And he has his eyes open too for a real estate deal that's going to net him tens of thousands. I get it. I'm small potatoes. But you know what? These small potatoes are turning into silver for me. I earmark it all for silver. And that's how I'm able to stack hard on a middle income. I've just changed the way I look at all this stuff. And you know what? I'm hoping that, look, I'm not going to spend the absolute rest of my life, living like a miser, for lack of a better word. I hope not to. I'm hoping that I can build some wealth so I can be comfortable. I've said before, this isn't a means to consume for me. This isn't, gee, I hope silver goes up to $60 an ounce so that, I can go out and live like a king. It's all about security and freedom. That's what money is to me, guys. It wasn't always that way. It wasn't always that way. I like nice things as much as anybody else. Believe me, I do. I love the finer things in life. But economic reality says that really doesn't make sense for me right now. Trying to raise a family and provide for them and do well by them, I can't just go out and buy a really nice car. I can't, and I'm fine with it. I can't live in the nicest neighborhoods our neighborhood is nice. What I should say is I can't go out and buy a McMansion. I'd love for my kids to have a beautiful home with a heated pool outside, and it just isn't for me right now. Economic reality says, no, you can't do both. I could live my life right on the edge like I always had and not have any savings and be fine with it. But I basically drew a line in the sand for myself, and I said, no more, no mas. I'm not living this way anymore. Empty consumerism, it does not fulfill me. It doesn't make me happy. It's a temporary sugar rush, and that's not how I'm going to live my life. Now, I'm about building my wealth so that down the road, I don't have to worry about it anymore. So, yeah, guys, that's just it. This is how I stack on a middle income salary. All right, talk to you later.